Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
We're
Thank you
live.
for coming.
Okay.
All right, today we are going to be reading a piece by Stef. It's called Snail Child.
Yes.
Do you want to introduce the piece at all, Steph, or do we just jump right into it?
I think we just go in cold and then we'll
All
see
right.
what comes from it.
All right.
Everyone's got their list of characters, right?
Yeah. I will be reading the general, the doctor, the lawyer, Private 2, and the mother.
I will be reading Child, Detective, Private 1, Stenographer, and Pa. And we'll have Luke on our stage directions and Steph coming along with us. All right, so Luke, feel free to get us started with scene 1.
All right. Snail Child by Stephanie Flanagan. Scene 1. The General. Blackout. A small rectangle of light materializes onto a blank gray stage. A uniformed general kicks a metal desk into the center of the rectangle. Sparks fly in its wake. The table is empty with exception of two large metal bands welded crudely to the top. From the darkness, a low, inhuman hissing sound begins, growing increasingly louder. A yellow ooze splashes across the threshold of the light before two bloodied fingers appear, carrying between them a snarling, feral child. Its clothes and hands are drenched in the yellow ooze. It wears a gas mask and a tattered brown backpack covered in blood spatter. The figures, army privates, chain the child to the metal rings on the table and stand in the corner of the light, so only their boots are visible. The general observes the child from an almost cruel distance. It chokes and writhes atop the table.
Someone explain to me what happened here today.
The bordering privates begin speaking in unison.
Improvised explosive
Brainwashing
devices.
and coercion, chemical warfare, kidnapping and assault, murder. Stop!
The general approaches the child and rips the backpack off its back, throwing it at one of the bordering privates.
Get this to the cops.
The private's feet turn abruptly and exit.
No!
The child screams, spits, and growls, absolutely manic. Then, suddenly, it slides out of the restraints and face first onto the ground, silent. The general just observes her again.
What is this thing?
He pushes the table back into the darkness and exits, leaving the child shivering and drooling on the floor. Interlude. The Friend. Crickets. The edge of the light disperses from a hard edge to the shadows of grass blowing in the wind. The child rolls over and curls up on its side. Projections of water wash across its face. The child's eyes light up and it waves shyly to an unseen friend. The child stands as its backpack floats down into expectant arms. The child sits, takes out a bottle of water, and drinks. Takes out a small cloth to wipe the dirt from its face, and places everything carefully back in the backpack.
Pa was a sailor. You knew that, right?
The child curls back up on the floor.
He's gone now. Did you know that?
The boots of the privates move forward, and they rip the backpack from the child's shoulders again.
Did you know it's my fault?
Blackout. Scene 2. The Detective. A small square of light appears as the detective pulls two chairs in, clutching a phone between his ear and his shoulder.
The child's language capabilities are minimal, possibly non-existent. Have you ever heard that thing talk? Exactly. Me neither. It's been here for a week. Speaking of which, anyone figure out what are we going to charge it with? It's a minor for one. What did we find in the backpack? Empty. Of course. Blood? A lot of it. Whose? We don't know? Well, sure. And What did they say about the tapes? The manifesto? Nothing. Great. I'm actually scared shitless right now. Scared of a fucking little kid. Stop laughing, you asshole. I've got the room. Hurry up and bring it in.
The detective clips his phone to his belt, hearing a noise from offstage. He sits in one chair and gestures towards the other. Out of the darkness emerges the child, dressed in a black jumpsuit and chained at its hands and feet. It is pushed by a doctor in a white lab coat who hovers on the edge of the visible space. All we see are hands writing on the clipboard. The child sits in the offered chair slowly, warily observing the detective.
Backpack? Oh shit. You can talk. I'm 14. Sure, but you weren't talking before. Mostly just grunting, screaming, growling, so I didn't need to talk. Okay. My father, yeah? He's here? His body. No, that's not how we... They have to, like... No, it's not here. But I'm here. Yeah? He would hate you. Your father? For taking me. We didn't... That's not exactly true. My backpack. It was empty. I want it. Well, I'm sorry. It's evidence. Of what? A few things. Maybe the bad things your dad was up to? Pa was a good man. I mean, Pa looked after me for my whole life. Okay. Where is he? What's your name? Your dad said it's Neoma in his videos? Never heard that name before. Where'd he come up with that? Does it have something to do with the MMDEs? How many people were in the car when JFK was assassinated? 6. I don't know. What does that have to... You lie. Stop talking to me. You're not real. Ah, shit. You're blind. Asleep. Here we go. One day you'll wake. Such a cliche. You were not chosen. You did not slide. Is that what he told you? You will die false and blind! Alright! Jesus, enough! I can't with this shit, man. I mean...
The detective exits abruptly, leaving the child alone in the chair, while another square of light appears right beside the first, as if they were connected by a wall. In the new square, there is a desk with a large computer monitor showing the profile page of a very active YouTube account. The detective appears in that square, kicks the desk in frustration. Then he composes himself and chooses one of the videos on the screen, standing back to let it play.
It's time.
In the other room, the child perks up and desperately looks for the source of its father's voice. The doctor records furiously on his clipboard. Blackout. Scene 3, the lawyer. Another room of light appears. The child is seated, unbound, in a dilapidated armchair. There is a stenographer seated on the edge of the visual space, his stenotype machine perched on a pedestal in the corner of the light. The lawyer enters. She looks exhausted and disheveled.
Naomi Broom?
The child glares at her, then nods subtly.
Hi, I'm the public defender assigned to your case. We don't have a lot to go on so far because they've not yet figured out what to charge you with, incompetent idiots. But I can tell you that on our end, we are working on building the best defense possible and will obviously need your help going forward. Some business for today, actually. We found your mother, and she's agreed to see you.
I don't have a mother.
You do. And as far as I'm concerned, she is the only other person alive who could potentially help you.
I only have a paw.
Your pa has been dead for months. You killed him, allegedly.
The child squirms in the chair, never breaking eye contact with the lawyer.
Okay, look. I don't know how much of this, if any, you understand. And based on the way you're looking at me, I don't know if you've ever seen another human woman in the real world before. And most importantly, I don't know if anyone has told you yet that you are being held responsible for the deaths of 113 innocent people.
They weren't people.
Oh my God. Don't just stop for a second.
The stenographer's fingers hesitate above his machine. The lawyer stands and kneels in front of this child.
Please, please, never say that to me or anyone. They were people. I am people. You are people. Do you understand?
They did not slide.
The lawyer stands and returns to her chair, opening her briefcase and rifling through until she pulls out a newspaper, gesturing to the stenographer to resume typing. He does.
Let's see what they are saying about you, shall we? Broom is the only child of fear-mongering conspiracy theorist and suspected internet cult leader known as Paul, and his cross-platform username Church of MMDE. In his now deleted YouTube videos, Pa resurrected a decade-old internet meme, colloquially known as the Mandela effect, which was a phenomenon where thousands of individuals would collectively misremember a fact or event. Pa preached that this phenomenon was caused by a slide into an alternate parallel dimension, and this collective misremembering shows the glitches in our dimension where the old version of reality is peeking through. The phenomenon has been debunked several times as a psychiatric process called confabulation, but this did not stop Pa from building a following of over 1.3 million believers who applauded the terrorist acts of last month as a way to wake up the rest of the world to our shift in reality. Courts have yet to.
The lawyer glances at the child, who is squirming more violently in the chair. She folds up the paper and puts it back in the bag, then crosses to the child, tentatively placing a hand on its shoulder.
Did he do things to you to make you believe these fantasies? You must be able to see what's going on.
Suddenly, the child lashes out and attempts to bite the lawyer's hand. The lawyer jumps back and falls out of the space, scrambling away.
You did not slide either.
Blackout. Interlude. The friend. Crickets. A path of light stretches from one corner of the stage to the other. Projections of sand blow across the path. The child appears upstage in its gas mask, with backpack planted surely on its shoulders. It slowly rips off its gas mask, and we see its face light up as it sees its friend. The child sits in the grass and takes a walkie-talkie out of its backpack, holding it up to show its friend. Then the child tentatively reaches its lips down to the walkie-talkie, pushing the button.
Huh?
Static.
I don't know why I thought.
The child puts the walkie-talkie back.
Have you ever watched someone die? Now that I have, I don't know what everyone is so afraid of. They just take one last real big breath and then blow it out super fast like this.
She demonstrates.
Pa always said I had to be a snail. Make sure home was wherever I was. And he would confine me. But now, I think someone stepped on me. And I'm just a slug that only lives for a day. But this long, long day is so important and so meaningless at the same time. Everything is just big and impossible, and I just want to slide around and find myself a shell house. And then someone steps on me again, and then I'm dead. Which is okay. Until someone decides it's your turn to be a meaningful, important, conscious, self-aware human, and you get yanked out of your shell and put into a false world of mortgages and racism and corruption and lies, lies and lies, and it's pretty much the worst thing. I think I've been alone for too long.
Scene 4, the mother. The blue light suddenly changes back to cold, clinical white, and the path of light is split by a glass partition. The child paces on one side of the glass, her backpack and gas mask gone. From the corner, the doctor's arm appears, leading in the mother, a terrified, feeble woman in her early 30s. There is a long, uncomfortable silence.
I don't know your face. I thought I would, but
Who are you?
these men tell me I'm your mother.
My mother left me.
Yes, yes. I left when he was.
Pa?
Oh, they told me that's what he's called now. I knew him by a different name. I came to him so young, gave birth to you in this dark room, held you in my arms for a few hours before he told me you had died in the night. He told me that while I slept, broken from bringing you into the world, he stayed up and burned your body so I didn't have to see it. I can still smell the smoke in the air. And then he sent me away.
He sent you? Sent you where?
I need you to know that I thought he chose me. That I was special, cosmically important. That I was just willing, vulnerable, one of many. And that's all he needed. And then once he got what he wanted, he discarded me like everything else.
You just left.
It was 15 years ago. I was a child myself, and he was, well, you know how he was. You have to know.
He stayed. You left.
He lied to me.
You left.
He hurt me. Did he hurt you?
He loved me.
The rest of the play goes on from there.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Would you like to read this interlude here?
Yeah? All right. So we're going to go ahead and keep reading this interlude.
Yeah, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
Right, interlude, the friend. The sound of prison doors opening. Blue light washes over the child. Crickets. The child closes its eyes, inhales, exhales, then opens its eyes and smiles slowly. Then the child, almost in slow motion, steps out of the square. The moment its foot touches the ground, all lights go up on stage and in the house. The child looks around for its friend. Its backpack is thrown roughly into its unprepared arms. The prison's doors close. Blackout. The end.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have 7 minutes, so how about I just close this meeting and then we'll start a new one so we can have our discussion. All right?
Perfect.
All right.
Is there any
All right, we'll be just back in a moment for a discussion about the piece.
Yes. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. We got two of you back.
It's
Can you put it in both spots?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh yeah, sorry, Isaac, for having you basically read an entire scene on your own.
all good. There's always bound to be that one character where you forget that they talk.
Mhm.
Just waiting on Stef.
At least it wasn't like the detective and the child talking the whole time, and every other character was like
Yeah.
one word.
Yeah, it was an easy one to do both with. So, just waiting. I hope she knows that I intend. Yeah. She's typing at me.
I think she's coming. Are we live
We are live.
currently?
Yes.
I didn't know I was doing that bit live.
Oh yeah, no, that bit went live.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't know we were live either.
Cool, dude.
This is the kind of quality content you sign up for.
Exactly. Yeah. I was missing the scene that. Oh, there's the title card. Oh, I could have switched to that, but all right. It's too late. We'll do it live.
We're doing it live.
Oh, Stef, okay. It's apparently Zoom is loading slowly.
Yeah, congratulations on so effortlessly reading that that whole scene yourself.
Yes, thank you. Now that you know that we're in front of an audience, I would stroke my ego a bit more.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'd just be insulting you, obviously.
Obviously, that's how it goes in the background of Taking a Peek Theater.
Isaac, if you took out all your lines, it's basically just me doing a monologue.
Pretty
So,
much. So
waiting
let's
on my
compliment Luke as well.
Yeah, waiting. Thank you.
Yeah, if we took out all the lines, it's basically silence.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Stef.
Hi, Steph.
I made it. I'm
We've been
back.
just babbling live, apparently. We didn't know we were live.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
was
made
doing
that
work.
mistake.
I was doing
Right.
full Zoom bits. Wait.
They didn't sign up for improv, but they got it.
Yeah.
Yay.
All right. Let's talk about the show.
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anything you want to say before we delve into it now?
For
Okay,
sure.
ready?
Why don't I give some background on this piece?
Sure. Okay.
So I originally, this started as like a stream of consciousness monologue that I wrote in 2016, I want to say. Because it was, I had to go to the emergency room for some reason, like I had bronchitis or something. And I was what they had on TV in the emergency room was the Republican primary debate in the States when Donald Trump was to be elected president. And so I remember sitting there thinking, and the feeling that I was getting, I was like, this is the first scene of like an apocalypse movie when like everyone feels like something bad is about to happen and they're watching it on TV going, it won't be that bad. And then so that was just like what I was feeling, and I think parts of that turned into the child's bit about being a snail and getting stepped on and seeing people die and stuff. And then from there, I had this entered as a part of a different workshop that I did not get to complete. So I actually haven't touched this piece then since this draft was from February 2018. And it's weird to come back to it. And I'm hoping I can answer all the questions because a lot of this I look at and go,
Yeah.
I don't know what she was thinking. Yeah. So it's interesting because I think it could turn into something. And
Oh,
I
for
think
sure.
lots of it seemed so outrageous at the time. It seemed like the wildest thing I could come up with for this character. And in our 2021 world, the gas mask doesn't seem super weird anymore.
Yeah.
The idea of conspiracy theories taking over people's lives, and that doesn't seem super weird either.
Especially
So
from YouTube. Like, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, there's stuff to discuss, I think. So
Yeah, I'm
anyway, that's the background.
honestly shocked to hear that that started as a monologue from a Donald Trump like inspiration. Because yeah,
You
again,
don't
like the
remember? You don't remember him outlining his snail child policy that he was going to implement?
I wouldn't doubt it.
It was ripped off,
I
yeah.
wouldn't put it past him.
Honestly.
And then subsequently denying said statement.
Yeah.
what is reality? Because I wanted to say that yeah, the whole like feel of basically following the viewpoint of this child as they try to understand their own how they were manipulated themselves is just absolutely beautiful for yeah such a for the 2021 audience. This would be perfect piece. Like it fits right along with everything that we're seeing, everything I'm reading about right now. So I was absolutely diving into this grungy type play. That's what I love about your pieces, honestly.
And I did have a question. Have you written the whole thing, or is this just part? Okay. Okay.
No. So I
Have
don't
you
know.
just written what's here?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know where I was going. But I know it was to that end scene was written like first, I think. Or close to, where you have this fantasy world and it's all set out with the lights, and then boom, house lights up. We're in the real world and you're alone and you have no one to help you and your ideas are gone
Right.
and they're not going to save you. So that's where it was headed. And I don't quite know how, I guess I'm saying that the child killed Pa. I don't know how or why. I'm sure I did at one time or another, but or maybe I didn't. Because some of these things, I'm like, who researched this? I don't think there would be like, why would the military be there, but also then they say send it to the cops, and then
Yeah.
no.
Well, that's I mean this is a work in progress, and that's sort of how it has to almost start as a flow, like this is what I want to say, and then you sort of logically go, I've missed things,
Yeah.
and gaps in my logic have created some of these lines.
Well, immediately I was going to say, like, yeah, it's going with that whole idea of being manipulated by a figurehead. I think that was just your natural progression of, like, if this person is truly undoing the manipulation of this person, of, like, yeah, worship me, the best way to show that they've broken that is to kill their idol. So I think that might have been where you were going with that. Maybe. Who knows?
I'm assuming. Yeah.
I also had a question with the. I mean, obviously, I'm going to talk about the strangest scene because that's where I'm going to have my questions. The scene where the child is calling to their father in the sand without a response, and then monologuing. Right? Is this like? Was this meant to be staged live, or yeah?
I think so. Yeah, with the idea that the change in the lighting specifically, so everything. I don't know if this could actually be achieved because I don't know enough about tech to make it happen. But if everything that's happening in the real world is in these boxes, and everything is a box, and then it washes out into this like imagination land, this like escapism void that the child enters in their own brain. So it's a sense of like play with this imaginary friend that they've developed as like sort of a dissociative coping mechanism. So I didn't really know how to go further with that, or I mean, there's some clunky exposition in here already, so I don't know how to make that. Looking at the lawyer here, but
Admittedly, that is the point I was going to make. Is that it, like, not even specifically that this would be like hard to film or like hard to put together, just or do live. Specifically, that the way the dialogue reads, I almost see it as with a therapist, or like a stream of consciousness conversation that's just coming out of the child and somebody's letting it happen. And I was curious as to positioning it in a space where there are no other people, as like as your choice, whether that was like something you specifically wanted. If it was film, obviously you could have them in a room with someone else and have it be something that they see differently. That's why I was asking about film. But if it's a live piece, it would almost need to transition from the room to this space, or just be this space. And that's sort of just like something for you to think on.
Yeah.
But I almost see it as like something that could definitely feel less exposition-esque heavy, and you could pepper in questions if they were talking to a therapist or something like that, which is something that the military would also probably afford to the child who's gone through this trauma, right?
Yeah. I think probably I was thinking about times when the child would be alone, but I don't know if that's true. Like, would they ever leave this child alone? Probably not, honestly. Where it was like, I just in their own head. And yeah, I do have a bad habit. Or maybe it's a good habit. I don't know. I have a habit of writing things that cannot be achieved in physical space, and then paring it down into something more realistic later, like things like the snail goo at the beginning. Like, that doesn't need to be there. But it just is something that I'm like, oh, this would look so cool in the dark if you have a desk flying across and there's sparks. Like, that's putting my producer hat on. That's not safe.
That's an artistic choice too. There are several plays that can never be performed as written.
Yes.
Just physically impossible things. Even like practical effects cannot physically make this happen.
I wonder.
And that can be a decision. Like, it's okay to write plays to be read.
Well, I mean, with the release of Metaverse coming out soon, I wonder if this play could be adapted into a Metaverse live production play.
Speaking of supervillains, yes, honestly, because like virtual theater didn't exist when I was writing this either.
The idea of as well, like adapting it to not even just a YouTuber manipulator pod, but like a Metaverse manipulator, like a Metaverse, and you could do so much with that. Just saying.
And speaking of this section 2, if you wanted it to be a moment that's separate with the child, just the child and their thoughts, basically, like things happen inside of our minds, and it is totally fair to have this child experience the world differently, especially after what they've been brainwashed to believe. To experience the world differently than other people experience it. So maybe this to the child, they are alone, but they aren't. And that's totally feasible, right? Especially with the conversation about sliding. I thought this was a slide. I thought that was the indication here, that the child has slid into this space, whatever it is.
I made a mistake, because in that, I think the idea of you slide is you slide from like the old dimension where Pa exists into the new false dimension. Wait, no, the opposite. So the idea that this like cult, I guess I called it, was sliding into reality, whereas the rest of us live in this fake meme world. So I made a mistake. I realized in this reading of it where I refer to sliding as something else in I think in one of the monologues where the child is by themselves. So I think that sets up that confusion right away, and that was something
Fair.
I did flag in this reading. That makes it
The everything
unclear.
is just big and impossible, and I just want to slide around.
Yeah, because they're a snail.
Right.
Ah.
So I think that convolutes that sort of idea, and I think I also wanted to come up with a better name for
Dimension sliding.
dimension sliding. Yeah. I also don't know what an MMDE is. I was trying to Google it as we were reading. I was like, what am I talking about?
It also
Multimedia
could be an
dimension.
acronym for a company that that exists in your mind at some point in your life.
Yeah. So there's
More
that,
money
too.
done everything.
Done everything. Yes.
Multiverse manipulated device equipment.
I'm sure, yeah, dimension is in there, or maybe it's a real acronym. I don't know.
Maybe.
Dude's
Anyway.
gotta eat.
I'll also mention, yeah, by the way, if our lovely viewers have any more questions, feel free to toss them in the live chat or in the comment section below.
In the doobly-doo.
Yes, just want to add that. Do we have any more comments from our board of people here?
Yeah.
Luke, yes.
I was wondering, I like in terms of things that you could use to fill out the play if you wanted to, is something that came up is like I liked how the information about the cult was sparse, and I think that's I mean that's pretty common in like science fiction-y sort of stuff, is that like, you know, like you tell a human story that's compelling enough on its own, but it's also like, what's this cult? Like, what are they doing? Like, what are you talking about?
What's this
And-
called?
What's
Yeah,
the
what's
deep
this
lore?
called? Tell me. I was wondering if you're familiar with the podcast Limetown.
No.
Oh, heck yeah. Check that out,
Right.
dude.
Write it down.
That is one of my favorite pieces of it's the thing that really got me into audio fiction. And a lot of audio fiction is I'm an apologist for. I don't like it very much, but this is really, really well done. And it's I'm not going to spoil it because it does like rely on that kind of like, what is this thing? Like, what are we talking about? And but yeah, really, really cool stuff. And it reminded me of it a little bit. I also like, I guess like in terms of speaking to plays that can't be produced, or like the cool touches that are not practical, like I wouldn't, that's for directors like that,
Yeah.
like, you know, like if you're feeling it, like then it's coming from a really pure place. And so like that's important. And the fact that you have yellow goo, I'm like, holy shit, like that's like this yellow goo, like where's this yellow goo come from? And then like, you know, like the fact that it was mostly like a cult thing, I'm like, yeah, but like, is he an alien baby? But
Honestly,
like,
if I could
what,
actually
what?
jump on that, I thought at first we were going with the whole demon possession thing at first.
Spooky.
Very spooky
Luke-
character.
Luke did make a really good point that I just wanted to jump off of a little bit about leaving it to the director. After, like, when you're writing and you're trying to create something that does not exist yet, even if you're not specifically leaving it for the director, like at least leave it till later, right? Get the idea out, get the feelings out, get the thoughts out, and then worry about logistics of those things. Because it's really easy to just be like, we can't do that, and then you never get the chance to try.
Yes.
You know? And I'm sure there's plenty of things that people thought they couldn't do, and then somebody was hoisted into the air ex machina style.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
True.
And they never thought they could fly, but then they made it happen. You know?
I'll say,
And like things get easier and easier. And with film now being the medium for theater, it's a lot more practical to do stuff like that.
Yeah,
And honestly,
right?
like there are directors who do cut things out just because they want to. I know I see that right currently with a piece that I'm rehearsing. Where yeah, like the director just
Ooh.
looked at it and went, "Hey, that doesn't really suit what we're trying to do here." Like because they were doing 4 plays all at once, they found if they cut out one thing from each play, all 4 of them can exist in the same universe. So right, so a director
Oh.
can totally change your piece if they need to. So never be afraid to toss in something ridiculous.
Just to throw them off.
Just
Yeah.
Also give them a job.
yeah,
Like,
give them some work.
Like, make them Google like recipes for yellow goo, and
Yeah.
let them do some
Yes.
work.
I have definitely
That's
done
fair.
that for a piece that I've written. Where I started googling, like I made sure there was at least 5 different ways that a tech director could do what I wanted them to do before I put it in the piece.
Yeah, I remember that they're artists too, right? They probably
Mhm.
want to make creative choices,
Yes.
right? They
Very
want the
true.
opportunity to have to figure things out every once in a while.
Very true.
Um, another thing that I did want to talk about is the lawyer's exposition dump.
Mhm.
And they, like even the child's
clunky.
exposition dump is clearly an exposition dump, but this one's heavy.
Yeah.
This one is the plot.
Yeah.
And I think that it's too much.
Yeah.
Like it's giving away too much.
Yes.
And it's almost, it might have been just your brain being like, I need somewhere where I can reference what's happening in my story.
Yes.
But like let it happen slowly.
Yeah.
Like all of this information is like, it seems like it's all necessary to the story, but I think you've got your whole play right there.
Hmm.
Or at least most of it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to just keep the audience confused, right? We don't need to know that they were all tricked using the Mandela effect. We don't need to know right off the bat what Paw's intentions are or what the YouTube video is all about. Let
Yeah.
the story be about this and focus on the child. That's my suggestion,
Yeah.
obviously. Like, and it feels like how you've set it up, what you want it to do. Obviously, correct me if I'm completely wrong. But like that's what it feels like.
Yeah, focusing
Yeah.
on. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry. I think that was where it felt so unimportant where to just like dump it and then have the focus be on character development of the realization that you've been fooled by the people you trust the most.
Okay.
Sort of being the through line, I think.
Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like what they did, I think is like a nice like kind of sort of gravitational like pull towards the beginning and end of the play, and it's good that like if you like I said, like if you made the information kind of sparse so that like readers or viewers are engaged,
Mhm.
but like the story's the kid, like
100%.
like the story's coming to terms with being screwed over
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
trauma and all that jazz.
Yeah, believing that they were had your best interest at heart, and then realizing that parents sometimes don't.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of strength behind the child character.
Yeah.
Even if you want it to be, you want to get all that information out. Focus on creating compelling dialogue between the child and other people
Yeah.
with the knowledge of all that in your brain, and it will come out.
Mhm.
Because it's really not that much information. It's just a lot to put in one monologue, right?
Yes.
So getting across what Paw did to everyone will come across if you get through what he did to the child in this instance, right? And obviously, like you may have like the lawyer say, he duped you along with all of his followers. You don't even have to say how many, right? Like he's got millions of followers and he's tricked them all, and you are one of them, right? And bring it back to the child and the child's experience, and all this information will come out just in the fact that the characters are interacting with literally the most important person in Pa's life, right?
I think it's also a strength that that character is a child too, because it does like, you know, like the fact like being in like a cult and coming out and kind of like having those issues with trust is already disorienting, but being that and a kid and seeing this through the kid's eyes is like, I don't understand anything at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Like now I don't get anything. Like I think that's a strength to make that character a child, because then we can come to terms with it at the child's pace instead of having to be like, why doesn't the adult just tell me what happened?
Yeah.
And it also excuses not being so forward, right? Characters not giving you all the information all at once, because that's way too much for a kid, especially a child who is talking about the only person they thought they actually could trust, right? You have to tear down their trust of him so that you can bring them back to reality, and you can't do that if you're not trustworthy.
Yeah.
Right.
I think in the earlier or in the monologue version, I don't think it was an actual child. Like I think it's been aged back a bit, with the idea too that an adult that enters and leaves a cult, there's some blame there, whereas a child is completely innocent, right?
Yeah.
So it's this to create more sympathy for this not very nice murdering character, to sort of take away that blame to seem to make more sense,
especially with the knowledge of like this child never entered the cult. They were born into it, right? So this isn't there was never a decision. There was not a point of decision. And you say that this child, like, you want enough sympathy that killing was acceptable. I don't actually think you need that. I think you're trying to put more sympathy behind the character, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but people who have been in this situation, especially people who have never known anything better, it's almost, there's a significant amount of sympathy behind this character just with the knowledge that they were in a cult. Right? They were tricked. They were put in this position by other people, and there's a lot of sympathy just behind that.
Yeah.
That would excuse, especially if, like, I don't know how many people the child ends up killing, but if the only person they kill is their father, that will not be seen as an unsympathetic gesture at all. I don't think, anyway.
Yeah, unless you really dug into you could, if you wanted to get really dark, because it said 113 people, right? So this is kind of like you could really dig into like the kind of programming required to make a child do that, like in almost it makes me think of like Manson. I think like it takes a big ideological apparatus for someone to override their instincts like that, let alone a kid. And as they're disassembling it, I think kind of, having flashes of what the kid was taught in order to make them do that could be interesting. But I don't know how, like, that can get really intimate and almost in a disturbing way.
Yeah, because what I was trying to say earlier too, like with what I was talking about with a lot of people, is this idea of you really do only know what you're taught, right? Like I can only express to the three of you the idea is that the English language allows me to communicate. So if there's a word, there could be a word or a cultural meaning in the Russian language that I'm trying to communicate to all of you, but I can't because none of you would understand the terms that I'm using to describe this other feeling that our culture has not experienced. So to have this character who's born into a cult and that's all the culture they know, yeah, anything other than that is a lie, is this, and how are you supposed to convince this child? And I love that so much. So I had to dig into, as you guys were saying, like show them that this is all the child has ever known. Anything that they saw that disproved their paw was simply other and lies, and the world coming after them in their pure, which you see a lot in the Christian faith. But
I was gonna say this all sounds very familiar. Like if you read any Facebook comments under the news lately.
So yeah, like I do think that this would be very strong if we dig into that feeling of being lied to. How do you trust what you know if all you know is what you've been told? Especially again, I think that's what the difference you get is we believe adults, since they have the fully developed brain, should be able to break through all of, like, should be able to tell when people are manipulating them. But a child, as you said, like not only would get that sympathy, but we understand that a child doesn't understand how the world is, which is why we have consent laws and we have all those lovely things.
You also have a child who is several, like, over a decade into this, right?
Yeah.
This isn't a child who's like 4.
Yeah.
Right? They're at an age where they can make decisions, but they don't have the brain power, especially in this circumstance, to overcome and think beyond necessarily this, especially if they've never been introduced with anything else. I'm specifically talking about, right?
Yeah.
So they wouldn't know anything outside of the cult at all, but they're also at an age where like they're physically capable, right, of doing something like this, especially if it's encouraged by someone else, right? So just keeping that in mind, this isn't a situation where people would think necessarily that they can fix this child, right? This is the age where people might start saying like they're too far gone, stuff like that. And so you can have that sort of battle of like ideologies where people are like, should we help this person? Should we incarcerate them? Kind of public opinion. But I think the audience will still be on the child's side. Especially if we see what they see, which is what you seem to be displaying, right? They do not see the world the way we do, right?
Yeah. I think we're coming down near the end of this, but I just want to ask, Steph, is there anything you want to plug right now? Anything you're working on?
No.
Okay.
I am on a hiatus from theater right now, so this is very refreshing to get my brain pumping again in the theater world. So just thank you.
Sometimes we'll do like a little bit of a questionnaire. So I know we had lots to say about your piece, but I was just wondering if I could grab a few questions from you. Like, like how long have you been in theater?
A while.
Here, wait. We'll stop the live video, and if we want, we can still record 20 minutes and talk about this, and maybe we can release that with
then we'll do
the audience later.
All right, yeah, we might. I know, it's heartbreaking. So we'll cut the live stream here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Take care, everyone.
Oh, thank God.
See you on Saturday.
See you on Saturday. Again, if you have any comments watching this after the live chat is ended, just leave them in the comments. We will get past your comments along to Steph.